You stopped wanting it 3 bites ago. You ate the rest anyway. Nobody made you. Think about the last time it happened. Somewhere in the middle of the meal, a quiet signal went off. Enough. You noticed it. You even agreed with it. And then your hand went back down to the plate, like the signal was a suggestion. That's exactly what it is. Here's the part almost nobody gets told. Starting to eat and stopping eating aren't run by the same system. One system decides when you begin. A completely different system decides when you've had enough. And a third system, the one that actually moves your hand, doesn't fully report to either of them. That third system is much older. It doesn't care whether you're full. It only cares whether food is in front of you right now. So when you eat past the point of wanting it, nothing in your body has broken. Two departments disagreed. The older one has seniority. You've felt this with something as small as a bag of chips. There's a moment where you know, you're done. You taste the salt and not much else. And your hand keeps going in anyway, on its own schedule, like it's finishing a job you already quit. That gap between knowing and stopping has a reason, and the reason is much older than you are. And it leaves a strange question sitting there. Why would any animal be built like this? Carrying extra weight costs energy. It slows you down. It makes you louder in a quiet place. It makes you easier to catch and harder to feed. An animal that regularly eats past full should have been erased. It wasn't. It became us. To understand why, you have to stop looking at meals and start looking at gaps. A hunting group brings down a large animal. For 2 days, there's more meat than anyone can eat. Then there's nothing for 9 days. Then a thin week of roots and whatever the children find. Then honey, once, in a season, and then not again for months. Food didn't arrive in portions. It arrived in windows. And a window is a completely different problem than a portion. If someone hands you a portion, the smart move is to eat what you need. If the world opens a window, the smart move is to eat everything inside it, because the window closes, and you don't get to choose when the next one opens. Fruit works the same way. A tree ripens for a couple of weeks, and then it's finished for the year. You can't ask it to slow down. You can't come back on Tuesday. So the tree sets the schedule. And the animal that eats hardest, while the tree is generous, is the animal that walks into winter with something in reserve. There's another detail people miss. That meat isn't yours. It gets shared out across the whole group immediately, because it will rot in a day, and because tomorrow it might be somebody else's. Kill feeding you. So the window is short and the door is crowded. Whatever you're going to get, you're getting it now. And there was only one way to carry a good day into the empty ones. You couldn't store it. You couldn't cool it. You couldn't haul it on your back for 20 kilometers without it turning. You could only store it inside your own body. Body fat isn't a mistake. It's the oldest savings account on Earth. A person carrying a few extra kilos is carrying weeks of walking, so a body that ate past full during a good week wasn't being greedy. It was quietly surviving a bad week that hadn't happened yet. Not everyone agrees on how deeply this shaped our genes. That argument is still open among researchers, and serious people land on both sides of it. But the behavior isn't in question. Eat while it's here. That instruction is written very deep, except that only explains eating a lot. It doesn't explain the thing you actually do. It doesn't explain why you keep going after the food has stopped tasting good, because wanting something and enjoying something are two different circuits, and they run at completely different speeds. Enjoyment burns out fast. The first bite of anything is the best bite you'll get. The fourth is noticeably weaker. By the 10th, the pleasure is mostly gone and you're just chewing. You can test this on your own favorite food. Nobody's 10th bite is as good as their first. The food didn't change. Your response to it did, and it dropped fast. If eating were really driven by enjoyment, every meal would end right there, around bite 4, all by itself. But the drive that put the food in your mouth isn't made of pleasure, it's made of pursuit. And pursuit doesn't fade when pleasure fades. It keeps pushing long after the enjoyment has emptied out. That's why the last third of a meal often feels mechanical. You're not eating for taste anymore. You're running a program that hasn't received a stop command. And here's the turn. That stop command was never built strong. It never needed to be. Think about what a wild meal actually looked like. Roots you had to dig out of hard ground, tough meat you had to tear with your teeth, bitter greens, fibrous stems, small animals that were mostly bone. Every one of those foods fights back. They take work to get, and more work to swallow. Ancient people spent a serious part of their day just chewing, which means the food filled your stomach with bulk, long before it delivered much energy. You got full slowly, on purpose, because that's what the food was like. And then, most importantly, it ran out. The environment did the stopping. Your body never had to build a strong brake, because the world was already applying one for free. Every meal ended when the food ended, so the brake stayed weak. A polite little signal, enough, which works perfectly, right up until food stops running out. And that brings us to the thing that actually beats you at the dinner table. It isn't sugar, it isn't fat, it isn't advertising. It's something so ordinary you'd never suspect it. It's variety. Your fullness signal doesn't track total food. It tracks food per flavor. Eat enough of one thing, and your appetite for that specific thing collapses. Bread stops being appealing. Chicken stops being appealing. Your body marks it as covered and shuts that door. But it only shuts that one. Every other door stays wide open. So the moment something new shows up, salty after sweet, cold after hot, crunchy after soft, your appetite comes back at almost full strength. Not because you need it, because a different flavor is a different account, and that account is still empty. You don't have a dessert stomach, you have a fresh one. This is the moment everyone knows and nobody questions. You're genuinely, painfully full. You couldn't manage one more piece of bread. Then something sweet lands on the table, and suddenly there's room. The room was always there. It was just filed under a different flavor, and that was a brilliant feature for a very long time. No single wild food had everything a human needed inside it. The body that got bored of one plant and stayed curious about the next one ended up with a complete diet by accident. Getting bored of food was a nutrition strategy. Now look at what a modern meal does with that. Salty, then sweet, fizzy, then creamy, crunchy, then soft. Course after course, each one arriving at the exact moment the last one lost its appeal. A buffet isn't a large amount of food. A buffet is a machine for reopening doors that just closed, over and over, until every door in the building is open at once. And there's a timing problem stacked on top of it. The signals that tell your brain you're full take about 20 minutes to arrive. Wild food needed all 20. It was bulky and slow and hard to chew, so the message and the meal finished at roughly the same time. Modern food delivers half a day of energy in 6 minutes. Soft, warm, ground down, pre-chewed by a factory. Nothing about it fights back. So you finish, and then you sit there, waiting for a message about a meal that ended a quarter of an hour ago. By the time it lands, you're already past it, every single time. So here's what's actually happening at your table. You're not weak, you're not broken, you're running a system that was tuned beautifully for a world where food was unpredictable, bulky, repetitive, and gone by Thursday. That system has one instruction: eat while it's here, because it won't be here long. It has never once been wrong. It has just never been switched off. And now it lives in a world with a fridge that refills itself, a shop that never closes, and a meal designed to feel brand new every third bite. The food changed in about 100 years. You didn't. Nothing changes in 100 years. That's not enough time for a body to learn anything. So you sit down at a table your instincts have never seen before, carrying a set of rules that saved every ancestor you have. So every time you finish something you stopped enjoying, that isn't a failure of willpower. That's 2 million years of good advice. Arriving late to a problem it already solved. Your body isn't failing you. It's still eating like the food might stop.